GM, everyone. So my name is Imran. I'm one of the partners at the DeFi Alliance, which is a Web3 accelerator program. And today we have 4 incredible investors in the crypto ecosystem. And so what we'll do first is kind of go through a quick introduction and talk a bit about the fund, what they do in terms of thesis, and what are some of the upcoming trends that they're seeing. And then we'll start to dive deeper into those trends. So I'll start with Amy.
Hey everyone, I'm Amy Wu from Lightspeed. We are a generalist VC fund, have about $12 billion under management, and I lead our crypto and gaming investing. So we've been deploying a lot of capital in crypto this past year, about 400 million. It's still a very small percentage of our fund, so we have a long ways to go. And some of the deals that we've done this year include, FTX, Alchemy, Solana, and others. And so really excited to be here.
Hey everyone, Austin Barak here. Coin Fund is a generalist multi-strategy fund, actually one of the first funds started in crypto in mid-2015. Since then, we've launched a couple early-stage venture funds, liquid hedge fund, as well as just a couple days ago, actually, a joint venture with NFT Venture Studio.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul Veretatakit. I'm a partner at Pantera Capital. Pantera Capital is an early institutional investor in cryptocurrencies and blockchain, so we've been investing into companies and currencies since early 2013. We also have a multi-strategy approach where we invest into early-stage equity, early-stage tokens, and also do liquid trading. Manage about $7 billion right now, and I guess what helps us stand out is we do both sort of CeFi and also tokens. And so we've invested into a lot of the sort of infrastructure to kind of support a multi-token world.
Hi everyone, I'm Rodolfo Gonzalez, partner at Foundation Capital. Started our crypto practice back in 2014 and have been investing in this space ever since. Our claim to fame is that I believe we were the first institutional investors into Solana and supported the team from the early days through the first few rounds all throughout. And now I'm here with the rest of our Fintech team. We have like 5 people on the ground, so just say hi and meet everybody. Because we're basically looking for the next wave of entrepreneurs that are building on top of the Solana ecosystem. We're super excited about everything that is happening in the space, and we're long-term supporters and believers in the opportunity here. Within Foundation, we're an early-stage venture firm, generalist with our current fund is like $500 million, and we're on track to deploying about $100 million of that in the next 12 months, just in crypto and particularly within the Solana ecosystem. So if you're a team kind of like building in the space, come say hi, meet any of my partners. We're super excited to be here.
Well, thank you. So since 2017, we started seeing so many different trends emerging. Gaming, which is also play to earn, DAOs, we're starting to see social tokens and other emerging trends. Now let's talk a bit about gaming. You recently announced a fund with Solana and FTX, and a $100 million fund. And so how are you thinking about the future opportunities with gaming, and what are some of the trends that you're seeing within play to earn?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a gaming investor or involved with gaming for almost a decade now, and actually longer than crypto. And it's been pretty awesome to see the two trends really coming together in full force. A few months ago, kind of came on everyone's radar, even though blockchain games have been around for a few years. Axie Infinity is like a overnight success, 4 years in the making, right? And Play to Earn has captured people's imagination because of how mainstream Axie has become, with over 2 million DAUs, and at this point over 10 million of revenue per day. So it's pretty awesome to see, and I think we're in the super early stages of gaming. I have always believed that gaming is the best use case for NFTs. Obviously NFTs going through its own wave right now, but if you don't have use cases for it, then we want to shift NFTs from speculative use case to actually something that people can do for fun. And where there's been 2 decades of experience of players who buy digital items in games. And so it's just like such a natural, fit for the NFT use case. And I truly think gaming, which kind of attracts between mobile, casual, and AAA hardcore, over 2 billion players and growing. It's actually the fastest growing entertainment category, even outside of crypto. And so it's I think, the best way to onboard the next billion-plus users into Web3. And yeah, I've been working really closely with Sam Romnick at FTX, and then Anatoly, Raj, and Kulin on the Solana team for months now, actually building out gaming, their conversations with publishers, and also talking to so many studios. And yeah, this $100 million fund really is like an announcement of the partnership we've been doing already, and really excited to meet with gaming founders and also people working in the gaming ecosystem around this in general.
Awesome. So within gaming, you mentioned Axie was an overnight success, which took actually 4 years. And there are now hundreds of startups that are building for this model. And in fact, Axie Infinity is like top 5 most valuable studio game in the world. So what is the market opportunity here? And what are some games that you're seeing that could become successful over time?
So I think that right now, play to earn, which is really kind of the evolution of gold mining, players, like kind of a way to really attract that type of player into the game is the first phase of what we've seen in terms of blockchain gaming. And we're yet to see this whole wave of like more mainstream game come in and use, I think, blockchain in a lot of different ways, like tokenizing it, like Axie has, and I think that there's going to be a huge evolution of that. One of the things I'm really excited about is looking for people with teams with gaming background and also with like crypto background, because I've always said, you gotta be able to build a great game. That's really difficult. People have been learning how to do that for decades. I mean, it's an extreme, in the gaming industry, right? It's like you have a few titles actually commanding the vast majority of revenues in a space and attention. And I think in the future, when we have hundreds of blockchain games, a similar sort of distribution will follow. And so we're really looking for people with pretty deep like game design talent on their teams, but also understand that you can't just apply Web 2 concepts to Web 3 like copy paste. Like you need to learn how to build a community. How do you actually deploy your community, do NFT drops, work with tokenomics in a sort of like holistic way. And so we're looking for teams that are like that can do both.
Awesome. You mentioned community, which is obviously a very big topic for all of the founders that are building in the crypto ecosystem. How has it changed from Web 2? Because in Web 2, you ultimately build an MVP, then you try to get product market fit, and then kind of grow your user base. In this case, the token is your customer acquisition strategy. And so how do founders think about that as they're building the space, and what are some newer trends you're seeing from that perspective? And it's open to everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the really interesting things about NFTs is, and I think we're only beginning to see this shift, is it's going to be the way that brands engage with their users, and not just in Web3, across Web2 and in all facets, almost replacing loyalty programs. Because if you think about, in a Web3 context to start, like in DeFi, how do brands retain their users, and how do projects make sure that liquidity isn't just completely fast flowing and goes to wherever the incentives are highest? And that's about growing the community, and that's about kind of tying together all of the different use cases that there are to have people be able to kind of earn achievements and have a digital footprint and an on-chain record. And the best way to do that is with NFTs. So I think we'll see over time this convergence between DeFi and NFTs, where DeFi adopts NFTs for engagement, between NFTs and DeFi to then pull in some of those token economic incentives. And there's going to be, NFTs are going to sit at the center of pretty much every facet of our day-to-day.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating to see how communities develop within this ecosystem. Again, you're not incentivizing people with just dollars. You're incentivizing people with ownership within a network. And so there's more incentivization for them to get involved and really do certain things within the product to help support it, to make sure it functions correctly, or maybe even refer other people, create a network effect, things like that. I mean, that's extremely powerful. And what we've seen the best communities do within this ecosystem is, especially when there's a lot of money that's coming in, there's going to be a lot of nefarious actors and things like that, is for teams to really focus on building brand and building trust. Because at the end of the day, I mean, if you can have the trust of the community, and part of that is also deciding how transparent you want to be in every step of the way and making sure that things are secure. But trust is the most important thing, and once you have that trust, that's really where the community just kind of grows organically.
I think a lot about the stage that we're in the ecosystem, right? Because there's a number of things that were talked about in the past, but were not yet technically feasible or very easy to do. We're finally getting to the stage where you have blockchains that kind of like do their thing, they produce blocks, and we're getting to the stage where those blockchains can talk to each other. And now the aspect of community is like if you're a founder that is connecting the dots between these different assets, these different entities that are coming together, is like, why that connectivity that you're creating is important? Yep. Like, why does that matter? Where is it going to take us? And is that going to be in gaming? It's like whatever it is, like social. It's all kind of like, how do you convince a group of fans to engage with you in that journey, and kind of like have them incentivized with ownership into that network, into that connectivity? And I think that's why it's so exciting right now, because everybody's trying everything. There's like all kinds of iterations on gaming, NFTs, DeFi, collateralized loans. Like people are taking mortgages on NFTs and different pieces. And like it's all, the community is like just this social contract of like, I believe in this having value, and kind of like going and building on top of that, which is just incredible. Like as an investor, is like the best time to be around this ecosystem.
Quite simply, community is the center of Web3. And if you're a project and you don't know how to build community, you're not going to make it. However, it's not enough. You have to have a great product as well, because the community that you've built early on is essentially trusting you to deliver them a great product and value. And so I think you need both, but it starts with the community.
Thank you. So the next trend that we're starting to see is DAOs. And you're starting to see people just come together and think about how they can participate in the Web3 economy. So we're seeing investment clubs. We're seeing, projects that are focused on like carbon offsets and other areas. So are DAOs just a fad, or are we seeing some real traction here, and maybe pointing to a few that are very successful today?
Yeah, I think DAOs are definitely not a fad, but it's important to not overhype them beyond what they are. They will be the foundational organizational infrastructure for Web3. But to say that, need to be investing more in DAOs doesn't really mean anything. It's the equivalent of saying, like, you need to be investing more in tokens. Like, everything will be a DAO. Everything will have a token. But I think what we're seeing now is this reorganization around how people coordinate collectively. But right now, we're still at that 1.0 stage, and more tooling needs to come about in terms of how do you better kind of more efficiently coordinate low-level decisions such that it's not one token, one vote, which then makes it incredibly inefficient.
What are some DAO toolings that you want to see in the market today that doesn't exist?
DAO tooling, you said?
DAO tooling.
Yeah, DAO tooling. So one of the ones is the one I mentioned around how can you create subgroups within a DAO that are focused on a particular subject matter, whether it's operational elements, security elements, treasury management, even pushing governance forward, and see those small working groups develop as sub-DAOs within a DAO. Also, I think we're about to see, really, and we've seen some of these in the past, with Flamingo and others, but an explosion of on-chain investment collectives that are closer to the communities and are able to work collaboratively, invest strategically with other projects and with other DAOs, almost as joint ventures of sorts. And I think that could be an interesting development. So those are two things that I think are on the horizon.
Rodolfo, you run Foundation Capital. It's been around since 1995. And so you're heavily invested into Fintech. So how do you see Fintech and crypto merge? Or is there something, like, I would love to hear like what you're thinking.
It's the best. It's the best. Right now, I think like about 90% of the companies in our portfolio that are in traditional finance, the only reason they want to talk to me is like, tell me kind of what can we do in crypto? Like, should we tokenize our XYZ thing, or how do we get into the space? What does it mean for us, and so on? I think everybody's getting very crypto curious, and people are trying to experiment. In some cases, there are very obvious paths into kind of how to make this happen. Like, for example, getting exposure to crypto, right? Like, it's still a big deal. And people are kind of like trying to figure out how to give native exposure to crypto to their investors, right? So kind of like, how do we increase the AUM from an institutional perspective, a retail level, and so on. So we have a number of companies that are operating in that space. In some other cases, like for example, we have now joined a company with the team at Lightspeed, where it's like an insurance type of product, and it's not in crypto, but it's basically using smart contract functionality to do claims adjudication and payouts. And it's all programmable, so it's like kind of like, how do you enable parametric insurance, but happening with crypto tools, even if you're not in crypto necessarily. And then doing attestations and other pieces, it's all kind of like starting to happen on chain. And in some cases, it's a hybrid model. In some cases, like fully, people are starting from scratch and just literally doing like risk management, credit underwriting. They're doing AUM-based products and so on. And so it's all starting to shift, and people are trying to figure out what does it mean for them as a centralized entity or a traditional financial institution that is regulated and has to live within a more guarded set of rails, but getting exposure to this next wave, because everybody has seen this movie before. Like, there's a new wave of companies, there's a new architecture, there's a new set of technologies that push the ecosystem forward, and you don't want to be left behind. And so everybody's doing that exploration at the moment.
Balaji famously coined the term DeFi is a linchpin for fintech apps. So fintech front end and the back end is going to be DeFi. How do you think about that, and are you seeing some of those trends today?
I think we're gonna get there, but we're still at the stage where, for a lot of people, signing a transaction digitally, having the understanding of key management and kind of like what that represents, like it's we're not there yet as a space, right? And so I think we're still at the stage where education is critical, having transparency, having just a very user-friendly experience to onboard people so that they can start learning about the space, having the opportunity to get exposure and learn and kind of like go what many of us did like 6-7 years ago, which is going down the rabbit hole. We still need to do that. And a lot of these institutions are thinking kind of like, how can I give exposure to these people without putting like all of the burden of custody or key management and so on their hands, because that's a big ask, right? Like, and I think like as a space, we're still kind of like in that transitional phase.
I think one thing there as well is one of the key enablers to have this really widespread adoption at the consumer level is mobile wallets. Because if you think about how people engage just generally, socially, in games and otherwise, it's for the most part on mobile, and right now the experience is largely driven on a desktop as a Chrome extension. So I think better mobile wallets will also ease that transition and kind of convergence between Web 2 fintech and Web 3.
Yep.
I think that the mobile challenge will be solved within the next 12 months.
Yep,
I think that the Apple, Samsung, et cetera, realize what huge financial opportunity there is here, and they don't want to get left behind. I think when you look at fintech meeting crypto, it's happening real time. And for the most part, crypto companies going into fintech has been limited by regulatory considerations. And so the other way is happening faster. So you see, for example, neobanks like Current, and others are offering lending products directly connected to Compound and other DeFi protocols, which has been pretty awesome to see. But if you fast forward in 10 years, I am much more bullish on a Web3 company like FTX becoming the next sort of bank, consumer and institutional alike for both the fintech and the crypto side than I do the other way around.
Paul, you recently led an investment into Alchemy.
Yeah.
And so they provide developer tooling for Ethereum, DeFi, and other areas. How do you see someone like Alchemy expanding outside of Ethereum to other layer ones like Solana?
Yeah, so just to clarify, we led the Series A in Alchemy, and Amy actually came into the most recent round after a Series B. That we had a Series C, and I think Alchemy is wonderful. I mean, in terms of spaces that's going to get sort of larger and larger, it's going to be developer infrastructure and developer tooling. Alchemy is a great start. They provide node infrastructure where as you're sort of building your application, you don't have to worry about running nodes, and then from there they have developer APIs where you can monitor what's going on with your application, everything from sort of your user base, activity, geolocation, testing out bugs, checking out the mempool, whatever. So these guys are really providing a one-stop shop, and there's a lot of different things that you can sort of expand to, and I think part of that is going up and expanding into more and more developer features and tools, but then also going cross-chain. So I definitely think that they've already had partnerships with other chains, and I think it's a natural progression for them to go horizontal and make sure they have coverage across all blockchains, but then also vertical in terms of making sure that anything that is needed in terms of figuring out how to best set up and how to best optimize your application, and maybe even eventually being able to help distribute your application to other people, and maybe even things around interoperability, I think are all within the cards.
Austin, you recently, we just chatted in the back talking about NFTs. I know CoinFund has had a very strong thesis in NFTs since 2018. Now, from those kind of ideas, what are some of the trends that you're seeing that validated your thesis today, and what are some things that we're going to see soon?
Yeah, a couple of things. So, CoinFund, we've been really excited about NFTs for some time, and we've long thought, and this is played out in the last year and a half or so, that NFTs represent digital content and IP coming on chain and being able to provably and permissionlessly and also in a censorship-resistant way own those assets. So we've seen that as far as art. We've seen that as far as collectibles and NBA Top Shot, where that really catalyzed a lot of the momentum around NFTs. We've seen that as people using PFPs as their avatar and associating their digital identity with an NFT, and how some Anon people are also using their entire identity. So, for example, Punk6529, who created Nouns DAO, that's the entire identity, and that's I think really, really unique. And what we're looking at, what we're expecting to see next, is major brands capitalizing on NFTs to really make their communities much more engaged in what they're doing. So we talked about play to earn, but I think that's really just the beginning. There's going to be exercise to earn, there's going to be learn to earn, drive to earn, and all of these things will necessitate NFTs to prove kind of where you are as far as experience level, and also what achievements you've accomplished, and then bringing in other general IP.
Now, for everyone, what are some key blocks of crypto that's missing today that needs to be solved before we get to 1 billion users in crypto?
I'm happy to start. Two areas that I'm really excited about is just generally consumer gaming Web3 apps. And I think that's going to bring the next 1 billion plus users. But it starts with the user experience, whether it's in a consumer app or a DeFi finance app. And right now, it's difficult, honestly, to use almost any protocol, like right now in Solana or otherwise. I don't know if when my money's going to settle. That's not a problem on Solana, some of the other chains, or and I think that experience, it's like if your user feels dumb, then you have not solved the user experience. It needs to feel good. It needs to be easy to use. Love Phantom Wallet, shout out to them, and I think that's super important. And like one underserved area is absolutely infrastructure software, like Alchemy, The Graph, and others, that is going to help developers get to that and really be able to focus on that UX a lot faster and solve some of the infrastructure and challenges of building on-chain.
Yeah, another thing I think is networks that automate smart contract execution, just to the user experience that you were discussing before. I think it needs to be a lot easier to transact on the blockchain, and what that means is reducing the number of transactions for any specific set of actions. So if you can have an automation network that takes 7 transactions and wraps it and makes it into one, or based on a predetermined condition, then you'll have execution of a contract. Then that's, it allows the users to be involved and engaged in a crypto context, but without the heavy lift that there exists today. So I think that's, another set of tooling.
Yeah, I guess quickly I'll talk about 2 things. The first one real quickly on, folks getting into crypto that might not really even think it's crypto, and it's just getting into sort of a more dynamic loyalty point, like an NFT. So I think a lot of existing companies and marketplaces will use NFTs to further engage their fans, and I think that's one way. Obviously, the user experience has to be good so that people can actually get into these existing platforms without the friction. And I think the other part that could get to the next million users would be around the emerging markets. So we believe that infrastructure is pretty well developed in the US, but it's probably greater use cases for crypto, whether it's things around yield, whether it's banking, whether it's play to earn, that's going to evolve in like Indonesia, Philippines, etc. And so investing into some of those companies, like me and Amy are in a company called Pin2, which is a Coinbase of Southeast Asia, but enabling those fiat on-ramps into crypto and enabling new economies to develop around things like crypto gaming, I think is going to really get a lot more people into crypto.
Yeah, the emerging market story is like critical. I spent a lot of time in Mexico, where I'm from, and part of the efforts that we're doing is how do we enable more developers to come into the ecosystem, right? So like we're dedicating a fair amount of resources into, like, for example, our nodes are gonna start running out of Brazil and Mexico for the Solana validators. We're starting to do market making with certain players in the local markets, basically, so that people can get exposure to Solana, for example, which is still incredibly hard today for a lot of people to access, right? So it's like get people access to the token, and then it like teach them how to use the token and what are the key properties of this network, which is like incredibly fast. And so like a lot of the trade-offs that people would face with other chains, like you don't have to worry about that here. And so now we're spending a lot of time with some of our other portfolio companies, like doing education, content, and so on, so that we increase the pool of developers, and then they understand their local economies much better than anybody else, right? And so they can start building projects that, for a bunch of people, like in Argentina or in Mexico or in Brazil, like, people are tokenizing the purchase of apartments in New York because they want to see that as an investment mechanism, and people are doing that, and they're building that on top of Solana or on top of like a couple of other chains. And so we're keeping a very close eye into everything that is happening. And then the other one that we're seeing quite a bit is like we're investors in a number of neobanks all over the world, as Emi was mentioning, and like, a bunch of this stuff is already happening in Africa, across Latin America, and so on, where people are just tokenizing the thing and running it on top of crypto rails. Because today, like, you can do basically like a global Venmo just using USDC and doing mint and burn, right? And just like move money around the world. And all of that stuff is like already possible today. Like you can, like, there were hackathon submissions that were exactly that. And so we're excited to see all of that activity kind of like turning into reality, because that's where a lot of the new concepts are going to come from, in our opinion.
And the way the DeFi Alliance is looking to solve this problem is like founder education, technical support, and so we just introduced our Play to Earn program last month, which we're quite excited about. So we think of founder support is also a very key area that's missing in this space. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and if you have any questions, feel free to stop us, and we're happy to talk. Thank you, everyone.